Electric sleep, I dream inside my honeycomb. I into new. Spirit lingers torn into metal fingers grip my heart so cold. Fossil fuels to slavery, political duplicity. Every great commodity's been sold. Slave to the new black gold. There's a heartbeat under my skin. Search my electric soul for the hidden man within. Slave to the new black gold. There's a heartbeat under my skin. Search my electric soul for the hidden man within. Broken body built anew. Spirit lingers torn into metal fingers grip my heart so cold. Slave to the new black gold. There's a heartbeat under my skin. Search my electric soul for the hidden man within. Slave to the new black gold. There's a heartbeat under my skin. Search my electric soul for the hidden man within. Broken body built anew. Spirit lingers torn into. Broken body built anew. Spirit lingers torn into.
Hello. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to Golden Color. My name is Joe / Nomad, whatever you want to call me. This is technically, I don't know how many weeks we're into. I don't know which episode this is. We're in week 6 of the 8-week Color Grading 101 course, second to last week. So, hey, Conrad, what's going on, dude? Yeah, no worries, man. We're not doing anything too deep today. We're kind of look at some difficult footage, like how to deal with difficult footage and some of the technical gotchas when setting up projects and such. So, hopefully, all that goes smoothly. How do I sound? Am I loud enough? Is music too loud? Am I popping? Am I locking? Let me know. Let me know what's going on. So we got Car Guy for Life, Bartman Dude in the chat. I just saw Falcon Rad. He'll be back a little bit later. And anybody else who might be watching, just staying silent, just staying quiet, just hiding. Welcome. Always welcome. So let's talk about, let me turn my, so let's talk a little bit about difficult footage. So probably the most difficult, I don't know why I just did that. Popping and locking, yep. Got a little bit more delay on this video than usual, which is strange on this live. Delay's about 30-35 seconds now, as opposed to the 22 seconds that we've been enjoying. I think it was 17 seconds at one point. I don't know, guys. I just work here. So difficult footage. We're talking about footage that is low bit rate or low resolution or heavily compressed. You know, not very good quality. Maybe it's overexposed. Maybe it's underexposed. And I'm gonna try to find. I think I've got some examples of some blown out footage we can work with. Try to make it like halfway decent. But first I wanted to talk about bad footage, compressed footage. Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate that, car guy. Bad footage, and I think most people can agree DVR is not the best footage in the world. 1080p, 60 frames per second, and the compression artifacts, I mean, it's compressed twice, right? So technically, if I think about it, technically it's not compressed twice. The FPGA from the air unit encodes it in HEVC, which sends it to the goggles, which then copies it directly to a file on the SD card, as well as decodes it in the goggles. So this is actually only compressed once. Fancy that. But obviously the compression changes. I don't think I had any particularly bad moments here on this flight. So this is not indicative of the best. I could probably dig out some. Oh, there we go. I mean, that's when it got quote unquote bad. Doesn't look terrible though. Ooh, 18 megabit. 18 megabit's quite a bit for 1080p HEVC. So let me dig and see what I can find here. If I go back in time, and I got goggles here. February. Which one is this? It's definitely 03. Wait, is it? No, it's not 03. Where is it? I think this might have been when I just got 03. So let's go back in time even further. 2022. Goggles. Got some old ones. Yeah, some old ones. That's definitely Vista, Vista original air unit. Fun. Super duper fun. We can play around with that, I suppose. So this is AVC instead of HEVC. So it is about half the quality per bit rate, give or take. And not the best color in the world, obviously, coming off the Vista. This was 2022. I think it was spring of 2022. Maybe it was fall. I don't remember. This is down in Texas. Flying around in a park. My little Gap RC Cinelog 35, I think it was. So that's fun. I can just drop that on here. So yeah, obviously we lose a lot of detail in the grass. Probably the biggest issue though is going to be banding in the sky. If I turn saturation up, you can see it near the sun. It starts to really challenge the codec. Plus, whatever reason, white balance off. You can see I'm just adjusting the contrast here to actually see how the codec's doing. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be doing. You can definitely see compression artifacts around here. So one of the things that we can do to kind of work with this footage here a little bit, we can take care of the sky for the most part. The white balance is all over the place too. So this is what I mean by challenging footage, right? White balance is all over the place, exposure is all over the place. Yeehaw, partner. Yeah, definitely. So this is definitely challenging footage. So let's just try to get the sky reasonably separated from the ground. I'm going to use a 3D qualifier just to try to grab grab some sky. I'm just going to try to make it so all the areas that are sky is completely selected. And I want to make sure I have the plus right here. And then I'm going to scooch through until I see areas like this. And I'm going to draw more lines. And even though they overlap, they're not actually applying on this frame. So back to that right there. That looks pretty gnarly. And I know I'm getting some of the reflections in the water and such. That's fine. But I just want to try to get the sky as separate from the rest of the scene as possible without screwing up a whole bunch of other stuff. I think that'll probably do. That's probably good enough. So turn that bit off. And I'm going to use an effect. I am not sure if it's in the free version of Resolve, but it is called deband. Of course. Deband. And it does exactly what you think it would do. I'll kind of show you what it does here. If I do AB here. Helping. So what I just did there, so normally like you show your mask and your mask overlay, you can invert that mask, or you can show the differences. So highlight black and white, highlight difference. So we're going to highlight difference so we can actually see what this is doing. So if I just turn this off, it's not actually changing anything. So we want to see this we want to see the edges around here to not be so pronounced. So we don't want to end up doing like that. We don't want to change those edges too much, but we want to see the blocks in here get as bright as possible, because that means we're taking the blocks out. Looks like that's not having any effect. And that poster fine. Hey Flexo, what's going on, my guy? Okay, so I'll turn that overlay off. And now essentially we've smoothed out the sky. We've taken the blockiness out of the sky. So now if I go to another node here and I crank the contrast, and you can see the sky's a lot smoother than it was before. So if I turn this off, you see how the codec starts to break down. You got all the blocks in the sky. The debanding takes that out. Now the downside of using debanding is if there are a lot of clouds in the sky, we're going to kill the detail in the clouds, and it's not typically a good look. So fortunately we got a nice flat blue sky, so we can just take those blocks out and call it a day here. And we're going to do something similar to the sun. So I'm actually going to use this node here. I'm going to reset it to make sure it's completely reset. And then I'm just going to take a luminance qualifier. So I'll turn my mask on first. So I'm only getting the sun and any super bright reflections. Just like that. And then I'm going to add deband to that as well. I'll set AB. Yep, that's about. I'm going to turn the radius up quite a bit. And the post refine. Pull that edge threshold down. We don't necessarily want it dark spots there. And that's just going to kind of smooth out the edge of the sun and any of the like light reflections that we might get. Just in case there's some breakdown between where it's obviously peaking. If we look at the scopes here over my head, it's obviously peaking out. But we're smoothing that little downhill since it's 8-bit footage and it's heavily compressed. Now you can see it in the water. There's still got a ton of compression artifacts in the water. There's some blue in the water that gets reflected, and that starts to get smoothed out, so that's fine. But for the compression artifacts in the ground, what I'm generally going to do is I'm going to add denoise, and instead of going into a node and turning on the denoise in here, I'm going to add a new node, and then I'm going to search for noise reduction. I'm going to use it as an effect. And what I'm going to do, I'll turn on my mask highlight. I'm going to highlight the difference. So right now, obviously, there's nothing there. Set this to 2 frames on either side. Motion estimation to better. And the motion range, we're probably going to be kind of in the medium area there. So I'm going to unlink the luma and chroma threshold. So just as a reminder, luma is brightness, chroma is color. And I'm going to scooch this up until I start seeing, yeah, so you can see where the noise is immediately on here. What I'm going to do, I'm kind of push that up until find out where it doesn't have such a dramatic effect. And back it back down. So like right here is not that big of a change, but below here. And I'm going to do the same thing with chroma threshold. So we really don't need chroma. We're not having any kind of a major change there. Then spatial noise, we're going to go for enhanced, and we're going to unlink them again, and we're going to keep the radius as small as possible because spatial noise reduction just simply blurs, and it blurs with the radius. Temporal noise reduction compares a bunch of frames before and after the current frame to find out what changed. It's specifically looking for noise, but typically noise dances around all over the frame. So it's always different every frame. And so the more frames that you analyze, the bigger sample of what the underlying noise looks like, and you can remove that without killing the details. Spatial noise reduction is done looking for specifically the noise pattern, which it looks like there is not a lot of spatial noise, which is good, so we can leave that alone because that's going to make things run like ass. So now we can see that's gotten a lot smoother. Still got some, but it's way better than it was. So if I take this away and that and this, you can see how noisy it is down here in this corner as we go over by these birds. If I turn those back on, still got noise, but it's a little bit more uniform. And basically we've smoothed out the blocks. So we're using the noise reduction plugin to smooth out those blocks as opposed to using D-band on detailed, detailed areas of the shot. Now, I think if I recall, I had focus mode turned on, so you can see the edges will start to lose bit rate before the center will. Nothing to really do about that. I think that kind of goes without saying, but just as an FYI, that's what that is. If you don't know what focus mode is, I think it's exclusive to DJI. I'm not sure if HD0 and Walk Snail or Stumble Slug or whatever the hell they're calling it, if that does the focus mode. It's kind of neat because it allows you to focus more of the bit rate where you should be looking and less of it on the edges where you're probably not looking. So that way you can do more with less. Good. So yeah, it's not running full speed now, but it does look a wee bit better. Probably not going to make it into a Hollywood film, but this is kind of an example of dealing with really shitty footage. I tried to make it as bad as possible. Now, I also wanted to touch on some of the differences that you might run into as drone pilots. Let me go here. Here, we're going 2023. Go join projects. Pico. So a lot of you guys work with the O3 Air unit. And I know GoPro also does it for if you don't have it set up with Labs firmware. Never seen you struggle before. Oh, you mean denoise, destab, or deband? Yeah, the noise reduction is super hungry. Yes, a lot of you guys work with the Air unit, and like I was saying, if you don't have Labs firmware on the GoPro will also do it. And when I say do it, I mean this. So we're going to take one of these files here, and we'll slide over here. You notice the frame rate. So most people would just call this 120 frames per second, just like and the you know, 23.976 would be 24, and 29.997 or 987 would be 30 frames per second. They're not quite right on 24, 30, 60 and 120 or whatever. They're slightly off, and this is kind of an old artifact that is not necessary anymore. It's a broadcast standard, not a cinema standard. So in broadcast, they slowed the frame rate ever so slightly to allow for a little bit of extra room every second for additional signal. And this was done for audio. And I believe it might have been done for color as well. YRCB, YCRCB signal. It might have been done for calculating green, because green is not actually a signal that's sent. That being said, it's kind of antiquated, and so this is a 24 frames per second timeline, and if I just drop that on here, it's probably going to look okay. But if this were a 24, you know, supposedly a 24 frames per second video, so if it was 23.987 and I put that on here, it would look okay for, I think it's every 25 seconds there would be a missing frame or a doubled frame. When I have the frame interpolation set to nearest, where it's just picking the nearest frame to where it doesn't quite line up. And if there's audio there, then it becomes an even bigger issue, but there's not audio here. 24 goes into 120 perfectly, but 24 doesn't go into 119.88 perfectly, obviously. So to make things easier on myself, pull this off the timeline, I'm going to right click this guy and go to clip attributes, and I will change this to 120. It'll look exactly the same. It'll have the same pacing. It just won't cause problems. And if your machine struggles for resources, it'll be easier on your computer because the frames will always line up. This 24 goes into 120 evenly. So now if I were to pull that down on here, what in the world is going on with this? Do I have... No, okay, it's just short. Whatever. There's my foot. So this is Pavo Pico footage. And obviously there's not going to be any motion blur because it was shot at 120 frames per second. But another thing that can make this footage difficult to work with is because the frame rate's so high and the bit rate is constant for writing the file. So this bit rate for a file is going to be the resulting file for 1 minute 5 seconds. It's going to be the same size whether it's 24 frames per second or 120 frames per second. So when I have 120 frames per second, each frame doesn't get as much data as it would if it were 24 frames per second. One way I can illustrate that here, I'll right click this file. I have media info, part of my codec pack installed, which will show me it is 150, it's 0.151 bits per pixel frame. Basically it's the amount of data used to store the pixel multiplied by the frame the pixels in the frame, and then the bit depth is so think bits being more like storage and bit depth being a value. It's still 10-bit color, but we're not putting a whole lot of storage space into storing this image because it's 1/120th of a second. So this can be challenging. If we're going to convert this to 24 frames per second, we're still stuck with this really, really low value. Let me see. If I take this guy right here. So this is one of my outputs here. And we can see that it's 3 times the amount, twice the amount per frame in terms of the amount of data I'm using to store each pixel. And that does make a pretty significant difference. So the kind of blockiness and noisiness that we saw in that last one, that's going to be exasperated when you're dealing with high frame rate and constant file bit rate. But in the case of the 03, it's still not as bad as a Vista. It's pretty decent footage, all said and done. You can tell how good or bad it is when you're going over asphalt, and you can see there's some natural motion blur there. This is unstabilized, unprocessed. There's some natural motion blur, but you don't see a whole bunch of blocky noise here. So the encoder is actually really, really good in the 03. But that's just kind of as a by the way, and usually where the data is going to get discarded is in the shadows and the highlights. So over here, if I come to the color page, so up in this area here, we'll do that same thing where I crank the saturation, crank the contrast to get it to do something nasty, so we can see where the limitations are. So that's actually pretty good. Getting some defined bands, but we're not seeing the blockiness until we get almost all the way down. Then it starts to look more like, do I look like I know what a JPEG is? So this is actually pretty good. Like I said, the encoder, the FPGA encoder in the 03 is actually pretty good, pretty efficient. A little bit better than using like a CPU or a GPU to encode HEVC. So we're seeing a lot higher quality than we normally would expect from this codec at this bit rate. And if we go the other direction, try to see where it falls apart in the shadows. And we're not really seeing the compression artifacts in the shadows. We're just seeing the normal banding because it's 10-bit color, but we're not seeing that horrendous blockiness. See the bands, and we can see some blocky artifacts here as we really, really push it, but we're seriously pushing. That's exactly it, Conrad. Exactly it. It's a different beast when you're talking about cinema cameras, because at that point it's a static bit rate per frame. So if I'm shooting 24 frames per second, my file is going to be a lot smaller than if it's 120 frames per second, because every frame is guaranteed a certain amount of data to store it, regardless of what the frame rate is. I wish they would do that with action cameras, but ultimately the biggest limitation for a GoPro, being probably the best example I know of, is going to be the encoder. It's not the SD card. It used to be the SD card. That used to be the easy excuse, but now it's the encoder. A great example of that would be using GoPro Labs to crank up the bit rate on your GoPro. So like on mine, I've got them all cranked up to 180 megabit. And on GoPro, it's a CVR. It's a true CVR. So it's 180 megabit, whether or not the drone's just sitting there or it's flying 100 miles an hour. It's not a variable bit rate. If I shoot at 24 frames per second, then the encoder has a lot more time to encode each frame. If I'm shooting at 60 frames per second, it's got a lot less time, and chances there'll be a buffer underrun if the encoder can't keep up. I'm not sure about what specifically in terms of silicon is in the GoPro. I know the GP2 processor is probably ARM Cortex based CPU. I don't think there's an FPGA encoder, mostly because latency is not a necessity for an action camera, because it's not typically going to be, it doesn't have to offload and get the image someplace else where it can't control it fast, like what we have with the 03, right? So yeah, your mileage may vary. The 03 is a pretty good camera. It is a little bit difficult to grade for if you're not used to it. If you're used to GoPros, because this is still obviously decine-like, and I guess it's a very, very mild logarithmic profile. It's still, it can still be difficult to grade for. So, I want to show you guys a couple of tricks when dealing with DJI goggle footage, coming from the goggles too, for instance. So, this actually brings up gyroflow for us. And I am going to go and grab... First thing I want to do, I've got Pico footage here. So if I go and grab goggle footage, I get screamed at the lens profile is not loaded, and I can't actually load the lens profile for my goggles, or for the 03. It's hard-coded. It probably has something to do with the fact that DJI created the profiles themselves, and it was some deal that they didn't necessarily want the lens details public, so it's hard-coded into gyroflow or something. I don't know how or why it works the way it does. It's a pain in the ass. But if I'm not interested in stabilizing this because I want my, I like this, but if I wanted to, for whatever reason, I wanted to grade this, I wanted to have this not spherical. I wanted to bring the lens distortion out. There's a way to cheat and do that, and that is grab some 03 footage that has gyro data, and you'll see down here the format will be detected, and the lens profile will automatically load, and it automatically makes it rectilinear, takes the fisheye out. Now, if I go back and I take that same goggle DVR footage, it's gonna load the image profile, the lens profile. Even though it's gonna scream at you right here, it still takes the distortion out. Obviously, it makes it stretches out the UI, which is kind of a neat look, depending on what you're trying to get out of it. But that's kind of a neat little thing that I figured out about the goggle DVR footage in gyroflow. I wish you could just load this, just select this out of the list. I don't know why you can't. I'm sure it's DJI being difficult, but it's a neat little trick there to get to be able to pull the distortion out of your goggle DVR if for whatever reason you wanted to do that. Although I would recommend not trying to stabilize this. It might work. So if you don't know, if I hit auto sync here, it's literally gonna crash my stream. So I'm not even gonna try that. If there's no gyro data and you have a camera lens profile and you click auto sync, it's gonna just use optical flow and try its best to stabilize your footage. So I wouldn't recommend that. There's a different thing we can do if we wanted to do that. Hey, Rain Squad. Good to see you, bud. But yeah, gyroflow does have the, we'll just try it, just try it anyway button, which is auto sync when there's no gyro data. It'll just do its best. But I don't want to run that because it will crush. It uses the floating point, the FP32 on my CPU, which will cause my stream to drop frames, and then everyone's unhappy. So what I want to show you guys now, though, is I have the GoPro footage from my trip. I gotta turn this off here. You guys might not be able to hear, but it's loud in my headphones. So this is when I went and did the endurance testing with my Helion. And then I also have the goggle DVR footage of that same test. And I love having the UI, but I don't necessarily want to like. I mean, I could extract all the data out of the file and whatnot, but I don't want the actual underlying footage. I just want the overlay, but I want that on top of my GoPro. So we're gonna try that today. I've actually never done it. I just kind of conceptualized it a little bit earlier today and did a quick test to see if I could key it out, and it does supposedly work, so we're gonna give it a try. But I want to take my goggle DVR footage and overlay just the data on top of my GoPro footage. First thing I got to do is sync them up somehow. So we're going to go until, so we'll take this back right there. This is going to be on the bottom, so put that on the bottom, and then I'm going to go right to the point where it lifts off the ground, not when the stabilization is bending it, but when the drone actually picks up off the ground. Be a little bit of motion blur right there, and then I will select my goggle footage. And we'll go to the same place. A little easier to detect in the goggle footage since there's no stabilization. Just got to kind of inch my way up there. You can see the back end coming up there. So what I'm going to do, there we go. Where that forward momentum is, there it is. And I'll set my end point right there. Drop that. Then I can take the edge of it and pull it back if there was more leader time ahead of there. So that way I got these two synced up. So to kind of test that, I'll open up the inspector. I'll make sure my goggle footage is selected, and I'll just zoom out, push it up out of the way a little bit here, and then hit play to see if they're synced up. So I'll back it up to here so I can see the lift off. Yeah, that looks close enough for government work. So 24 frames per second does fit into 60 frames per second, or rather the inverse. 60 frames per second will fit evenly on a 24 frames per second timeline, with a caveat. So it's 24 plus 1/2 second that will fit in there. And how it's cut can affect how it fits. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but there's a half a second there that can come out of sync if it's cut incorrectly. And that's more software. That's not really anything you can do about it. If you can just cut on the wrong frame, if it's an I frame or B frame, it'll screw up the synchronization and it won't fit perfectly. But not enough that you have to worry about it. If you're worried about it looking perfectly smooth for every frame, then yeah, I guess that's a big a deal. But for this, it's not that big a deal. So it looks like we got it good and synced up. I'm going to double click the zoom and double click the position here, which resets those values. If you didn't know that, you can, so if I do Y and I just want to reset Y, I can not, that doesn't work. So double click position, but that works anywhere. So if we're on the color page, right, you can use these, but like here's the center right here. I can double click that, resets it. Any one of these, you double click the name and it will reset it. So that's a little UI tip if you didn't know. It's very helpful when you're just playing around with stuff, right? And you want to go back to, it's a lot easier to just double click that than try to remember or write it down or some weird shit like that. So we're going to do what's called compositing. But first thing we need to do is get the white stuff out of the goggle DVR footage. And there's probably going to be a bit of an issue because I'm betting the sun right there is as bright as the white in there. So it might look a little weird. We'll give it a go here. So I want to get the white out of there. So I've got that selected. I'm going to go to filters under OpenFX. And I'm going to search for 3D keyer. And I'm going to drop that on my goggle DVR footage. It does nothing for now. Now, what I want to do on this little drop down here, I want to make sure, because by default, it's going to show this. Okay, or it's just going to be off. I want to make sure that OpenFX overlay is selected and that it's bright white and not just off, because we actually need to use this here. So I'm just going to kind of zoom in a little bit. This nice solid goggle image is probably going to be a good look here. So I'm just going to click and drag it a little bit. Boom. Okay, so now we've keyed out the white. We actually want the opposite of that. So I'm going to uncheck invert. And it looks like we need to fix it a little bit. And we're going to use, let's see, I don't know if that's... So we can... the clean white can help. Clean black won't help. Pre-filter won't help. Post filter will kind of create a blur around it. So we're kind of getting everything in there. It's not the best in the world. I really thought I could do better than that. So Bartman says, I appreciate all the things I learned in these streams, but I especially appreciate learning all the things that I don't know I needed to learn, so many of these things. Well, I'm glad you appreciate that. I was waiting for the but. I was like, I appreciate learning all these things, but this episode is shit. Please move on to something more useful. No, I'm grateful for that, and I'm just kind of like trying to think of things that have tripped me up in the past. Some little gotchas here and there, and then we're just kind of doing this composite for fun, just to see if we can. It doesn't look like it's working all that great right now, so I'm going to delete that stroke. It's going to do a stroke on the battery here, so we'll select that and we'll draw the stroke on the battery. And that's kind of good. Man. Well, flat kind of gave it to me, but I got part of the... Oh no, we don't want... We can tell how synchronized it is. Okay, so... Oh man, so it looks like... Please don't kick me all. Remote ID? Remote ID? Ew! Remote ID is kind of where I draw the line. I haven't installed it on any of my quads yet that don't already have it. I mean, I think right now the FAA is probably far more concerned with making sure Boeing jets have all their screws than they are making sure I've got a little Bluetooth beacon on my quad, because that's essentially what remote ID is. It's just Bluetooth. That's why Karens with their cell phones can pick this shit up. Well, it's almost cool. I mean, it's almost cool, right? We could do a post filter. It's still going to be weird. Post filter's not really working. Rotate. It looks like the UI is not the same exact color as it's rendered in the goggles. It's super weird. Super duper weird. Yeah. Super duper weird. You're so square. Nerd. All right, so now I've got this keyed out as best as it's gonna get, I think, and I'm gonna have weird artifacts from the goggle footage just bleeding into the GoPro footage. What I'm gonna do is I am gonna right-click this and do new compound clip, and you can name it whatever the hell you want, doesn't matter. And then from there, I will do a drop shadow on top of it. Blur down, bring that distance down. Just give it a little bit of dimension, just like how it had its original shadow on there. It's gonna look all fucking weird, man. Just give it a little bit of dimension. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, that wasn't as cool as I thought it was gonna be. I wanted to build a little standalone remote ID, so if I want, I can just turn it on and appear to be compliant. You can actually run an app on an Android phone that can play like it's remote ID. And it can fake 1,000 different drones. It's not that big a deal. You can make it look like you're sitting in a swarm of drones. Okay, so now let's grade the underlying GoPro clip there. Hooray! Just real basic. Not trying to get myself in any kind of trouble here. There we go. So now we took our goggle DVR data and overlaid it on top of the GoPro footage. There's probably a better way to do it. I need to figure it out. Because actually this is pretty cool. I've never done this before, and I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, Rain Squad, remote AD is just Bluetooth. There's nothing special about it from an RF standpoint or a protocol standpoint. It's just Bluetooth. Oh, I really like that. That's pretty fun. Got some artifacts from the goggle footage bleeding on top of the GoPro footage. The horizon, it looks like. So that's weird. Oh yeah, that's special. That's really special. You can tell the angle difference between my GoPro and the O3. Just this floating glare of sunshine. That's pretty funny. And it's got a little drop shadow on it. It's adorable. Yeah, Flexo. I think on Android there's a ton of apps that can do it that don't require root or anything like that. At least there were. I don't know if they were on the Google Play Store at one point. I don't know that they still are. Google may have cracked down on them, but it is fairly easy, I think, to spoof them. I know what Ken Heron's got. I believe he's got a video that is a tutorial on how to do the swarm spoof. There's a bunch of other people on YouTube that'll do it. They will show you how to do it. I haven't done it myself. I just haven't had a need. And from what I hear, from what I understand, the only time you really need it is if you're dealing with high-price insurance. Clients won't typically ask for it. They don't care. So your mileage may vary. My opinion, though, I've always tried to be a rule follower, like to the T, and I've always gotten bent out of shape when people do shit they're not supposed to. But like, it's gotten to the point where it's pretty archaic, and remote ID is just, it's a totally unnecessary hoop to jump through. So that's where I draw the line. Whatever. Anyway, any questions on terrible footage? Any bad experiences you've had that maybe you want to like maybe share and I can try to replicate, or you know what I mean? And it's great when I ask a question because we got like a 35-second delay. I gotta wait. I just sit here and stare at the screen. Wait for the chat to show up. Maybe have a poofy poof. Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I try to be a rule follower, and it's to the point where I get really bent out of shape when I see people doing dumb shit like flying in controlled airspace or flying at night with no strobes or whatever. And I've got to the point where it's like, nobody else gives a shit. Why should I? I mean, for professional reasons, absolutely. You want to make sure that you can get paid properly. So you want to play by the rules when you're working professionally. Wow, that's just weird looking. But for recreational fun, right? Yeah, Conrad, I could mask out each individual element, and then I wouldn't have those bleed throughs. And it could be like a one-time thing. It could be a mask that I could just save and keep. In fact, I don't think it would be too hard. Let's give it a whirl. So let's take, let me decompose this horse shit here. And then we'll get rid of the keyer. Then we'll, do I want to do this here or do I want to do it in, do it like this. We'll do, we'll add an alpha output. So this has transparency now. And then we'll do some windows. God, oh, fuck this. It's, no, this is going to be easier to do in Fusion. Let's do some color grading, says Bob. See, I don't want it to look like a swarm. Just pretend to be compliant if I want to. Some super Karen shows up. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's going to be like, I'm going to make my whole neighborhood a Faria because I fly here probably more than anywhere else. I don't know. I haven't gotten any special like notifications about fucking insurance and remote ID. So, whatever. You're gonna do me like that. Okay. What in the world, guy? Merge. I'm gonna merge. Oh, crap. Okay. Might not hit the right buttons. There we go. I'm not 107. I don't do anything illegal or dangerous. Oh, Flexo, you fly upside down, dog. That's got to be illegal. That's got to be a crime in several countries. I think Interpol's probably got a red notice for you, bro. Because it breaks brains, man. Yeah, good point. I mean, remote ID is... I think eventually it's going to be integrated into flight controllers. And then, you know, everybody will just get on with their lives. It'll just require you have a GPS or something like that. But I'm not going to... And especially for Part 107, here's what I think a lot of people with 107 don't understand. Or rather, people without 107 is like... If you're flying recreationally, you can have one module that you can move around between all your quads. But if you're 107, you have to have an individual module for every quad. You can't move them around. It is absolutely asinine. So I am not about to... homie, don't play that. Homie, don't play that. Oh my god. My brain, I am just super brain fart here. I haven't done Fusion in a little while. So maybe we will just do it with this. Do soft, 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 soft. Oh, that sucks. I do it like this. Come on. No, give me another one, damn it. $70 module that plugs into a GPS. $70. Guys, $70 for fucking Bluetooth. Okay? Man, who do I sound like right now? I'm like getting all hot and bothered and shit like I'm on some kind of soapbox. Fuck out of here. It's not fair. Everybody's mean to me. Hey! Yeah, I don't know. Maybe only the most optimistic flyers thought it wasn't going to be absolutely outrageous. But also, like, shame on the companies who are taking advantage of the situation and gouging people who don't know any better. That's not what the drone community should be about, you know what I'm saying? Alright, fine. We'll take this one too. Okay. Ta-da! And I come back here. We take our... Let's just use an HSL keyer. Let's see if that does any better. I hope I got the right thing selected. Come on, guy. What are you doing, guy? Eh? This one wants to use... Well, I don't know, man. It's not doing anything. Broken. That's how I did it before. Individual mask per element. It sort of works since it was analog OSD. Yeah, I know. I mean, I could really get anal in, like... Yeah, I could pre-process the original footage to, you know, pick out... Because each of the letters has a black stroke around them. Just... I don't know why the keyer's not working correctly on it. Maybe we will try the 3D keyer again then. I think maybe... Oh, you know what I could do instead of using the keyer there. That's dumb. Same friggin' thing over here. Ta-da! How's that look? Little rough around the edges. I broke it. Yeah, I did. I totes broke it, man. This was a good idea, Conrad. I mean, it's a little hard to read in some places, but it's not anything I couldn't smooth out. I think if I pre-process the footage just to get some more contrast in there, I almost wish that there was a separate track with data. Like all of the same data, but stored somewhere else in the goggle DVR. Because that was one thing I missed about the Vista, was taking the... I mean, for what little data you got from the Vista, right? And that data is still available in the 03. I could tighten up those masks too, to make it so they only bleed into the... Wow, Rain Squad. 300 beats per minute. Need to slow down before you start smoking, bro. Yeah, no, that was a good idea. One of the things I wanted to do, and probably all of this data is available in Betaflight Black Box. Because, you know, people do stick overlays and stuff, and they'll just like take the stick overlay from like their goggle DVR and paste that on their regular footage. I wanted to actually make an an animation that was driven by the data that was on the flight controller on the black box. Okay, car guy, do you know why on any of my quads my remaining battery capacity seems to jump around a lot, and on another it seems way more stable? One FC is an F4 and the other is an F7. That could be why. It could also be how it's guesstimating. Sounds like Joe's internet speed. Could be guesstimating, and the estimations might be off. Maybe the F4 has to devote more resources towards actually like flying the quad and not trying to do the math on guesstimating capacity. I just look at the pack voltage and current draw, kind of guesstimate how much I've got, because as the voltage goes down, the current draw goes up. Oh yeah, okay. No, it's okay. It's quite all right. Hey, you know what I could do? If I really wanted to like make this work, and you know, obviously fuck what my experience would be like flying, but if I did 4x3 goggle DVR and then pushed all of the elements off into the sides where it's black, and then no problem, right? All right, kids. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? I'm still online, right? Yeah, okay. See, Connery, that's cool, except that your flight controller needs to be calibrated for current draw, for calculating current draw. It does not have an actual ammeter on it. It's calculated based on voltage and I think voltage sag. But it needs to be calibrated. So like it can be way off. I have I think the flight control on my 5-inch, I never calibrated it. I think it thinks I use like 1 amp at cruise or something like that. My X8's calibrated, and I know that one is scary because it's like 200 and something amps at full throttle. But yeah, I mean, the milliamp hour count, I get that. So I don't have faith in it, so I don't use that. I just look at the voltage, and occasionally I will take a look at how bad it sags when I blip throttle, and that kind of gives me an idea how close to that fall off I am. By the way, I saw that latest video that you dropped, dude, when you lost your quad. That I could hear it in your voice, man. That's tough shit. I've been there before. You handled it a lot better than I did, though, so kudos. Probably not the first quad you ever lost either, given your propensity for flying super far away. Hey, no problem, Bart. Have fun. Eat some good dinner. I'm about to wrap this up anyway. I didn't have a whole lot for you guys. Next week, we're going to talk about final delivery, so encoding things. And then we're going to be done with the 101. We'll do a long Q&A session, so it's important that you come up with what the things you want to ask, the things you want to review over again from the entire series. Anything you want to go over again, I'm happy to do that. Make a list, bring them up in the stream, or drop them in the chat on the Discord, and we'll add them to the Q&A session for next week. But yeah, next week's gonna be the last 101, and then we're gonna start getting into more general type stuff. Just kind of whatever I kind of come up with, or questions you guys might have, especially footage you guys want to submit to have me grade, and we can grade together. I'm going to try and get some guests for the show. I'm not going to say who yet because I don't want to make any promises I can't keep. And we're going to have a contest in the near future where you can hopefully win some stuff. So yes, this is the week 7, week 6, week 6. So I don't know anymore, guys. I'm lost. I'm burned out. I looked at my lesson plan today and got really confused. I kept extending week 5 so long, And then I realized that a lot of what we covered in week 5 was also in week 6, 7, and 8. So we're going to talk about delivering and encoding next week. And I'll probably go over gyroflow again on some of the more detailed concepts about how to get your footage out of gyroflow in a way that keeps it sharp when you start working on it in Resolve. Yeah, Car Guy. I probably need to rewatch the whole series. The last 2 so far. 3rd sometime soon. Yeah, nice. Yeah, please. Can't have too many questions. I'm happy to go over any concept that we've covered so far. Doesn't matter how long ago we covered it or how many times I've been over it. So there is no dumb questions, only dumb answers, and I'm the guy in charge of the answers. So hopefully I don't have any dumb answers for you. We'll see you next week, and until then, keep flying, keep grading, keep putting out video. I'm sub to all of you guys, so I think I have a lot of you guys on. I got the bell wrong or whatever, right? The shit normally you don't do for people, but I do for you guys because when you post something, I want to be able to see it soon, fast, quickly, in a hurry. So, yes, super awesome, guys. We will see you next week. So keep this shiny side up. Okay. Love you. Bye.